My name is Stephanie Roothouse, the Director of Customer Marketing and Communications here at Replicon, and I'm joined today by my colleague Scott Bales, who is the Director of Solution Engineering. And we are so excited to speak with you today about the impact of employee absences and want to thank you so much for joining us. First, before we dive in, I would like to just go over some housekeeping. So basically, you are on mute right now, and during your presentation you'll be on mute. The Q&A is going to take place at the end of the webinar, and you can submit your questions at any time via the Q&A text box located on the right-hand side of your screen. So if anything comes up during the webinar that you'd like to communicate to us, please do use the chat button function to communicate with the moderator. Perfect. I know most of you are Replicon customers, but I'd also just like to give you a high-level overview of Replicon in case you haven't spoken to us in a while. Replicon is a leader of cloud time tracking applications. Our solutions are used by millions to manage all types of time tracking needs, such as workforce attendance, projects, programs, professional services organizations, and shared services resources. So as a customer, you're in great hands. We have over 7,800 customers of all sizes and industries. You can see all the logos here, and there's many, many more. They include such customers as Facebook, Xerox, Moody's, and GeoDigital. So our customers are using Replicon because they're getting real tangible benefits that generally fall into the following three categories. So the first is greater insight. The human capital represents 70% of a company's expenses on average. So having insight into how employees are spending their time and what projects they're working on really helps take it beyond time tracking and take it up to another level. So you can really understand how your workforce is performing. Lowering the compliance risk is the second one, and whether it's compliance for labor relations or compliance for project-based businesses, Replicon really enables organizations to have all of the information needed to defend audits. And finally, optimized processes. So moving from manual to automated really allows organizations to do more things faster with fewer resources so that they can focus on activities more strategic to their business. And Replicon delivers these capabilities through four unique differentiators. So Replicon is 100% cloud-based with no hassles of maintenance. Features are delivered continually with new updates, allowing customers to really focus on their business and not run software. The second is that Replicon is one platform for time tracking across many different functions in an organization. Replicon is also extremely easy to use, allowing for high end user adoption. And finally, the no hassle component is just our commitment ensuring customers are running smoothly by providing 24/7 customer support and a dedicated customer success specialist for technical issues. So next slide is really just showing you Replicon's time tracking solutions and how we address the following four market use cases. So the first is professional services management, and that just is really helping professional services organizations capture billable time, keep track of projects, manage resources. It really just helps ensure fast and accurate billing. The second one is project and program management, which also allows project-based time tracking but doesn't have the billing and client management aspect. So this is really for organizations that need to focus on tracking time for internal projects. It could be such like development projects and driving efficiencies around that, or tracking capital expenses for tax purposes. The third is shared services management. This is for larger organizations that tend to have centralized functions such as IT or marketing departments that provide services to other internal departments and serve as a shared resources. So they often need to track how much time they're spending for each of their internal clients and also report back on the services they delivered and possibly also do chargebacks. And the final one is time and attendance management. So this one's not project-centric time tracking, but time tracking focused on helping drive payroll, helping manage things like calculating overtime, ensuring labor regulatory compliance, such as meal breaks, managing absences, things like that. And that's the focus today, more specifically, which is a component of time and attendance management, which is time off. And I want to let you all know, for customers on the line, if you have time attend already, you already have time off. So let's set the scene for the discussion today. So this next slide just shows the results from a survey that Mercer held and shows just just what the impact is of employee absences on a business. So 35% of payroll costs are associated with employee absences, representing, of course, first direct costs to pay absent employees, but also those indirect costs of lost productivity in hiring and replacement workers. So we'd like to talk about how Replicon can help with this. Let's see it in action. Right now, I'd like to turn the floor over to Scott Bales to show you a little bit more about Replicon Time Off.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stephanie. As Stephanie mentioned, we are going to talk a little bit about some of the best practices around absence management. And as a backdrop to that, what we'll first do is go through very quickly the time off offering from Replicon. Once we've done that, we'll talk about how Replicon addresses a lot of those best practices that we'll talk about, and then leave an adequate amount of time for Q&A at the end so that we can have some back and forth. Now, I've shared my screen out. Stephanie, I'll just get you to confirm that you're able to see that on your side.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Excellent. So the application that we've logged into is the Time Off product from Replicon. It sits on our platform, and that platform may consist of time off, time management, project management, lots of different modules on this platform. Today we're going to focus on absence management. Now, the interface that we see couldn't be more intuitive. It's a calendar-based interface that users are quite familiar with. Some of you may have a calendar like this posted in your break room where employees have different days highlighted as being off or out of the office. And we've really brought that experience into our application. This interface is a shared interface. So I can see my time off along with time off of other employees, and that's going to allow me to not book time off only to have it rejected because that request conflicts with another employee on my team. And visibility here is all controlled by permissions within the system. It is a permission-based system, so we can grant different users different access to everything. Now, as an end user, really there's two questions I like to ask when I'm booking time off. One, are there any other users within the organization that are booked off that might conflict with mine, which is what we're seeing here in a shared calendar. The other thing is, how much time do I have left? All right. And what you'll see up in the bar at the top is the number of days I have available, and that's as of today. Now, what I can also do at any point in time is drill down and understand what drives those 11 days. Any of you in the HR group, the second you tell somebody what their balance is, the very first thing they say to you is, that's incorrect, that's wrong. There's no way I only have 11 days. So now users are going to have, through our time off application, the ability to drill down and see their balances within the system. So they can click on a specific time off code, and transactionally they can see how the system has arrived at that balance. So there's no questions, no arguments, no need for you to go and dig up all their time off that they've requested and collate it and give it to them. It's all here in one place. Okay. The other thing I will point out is that this balance is real time. So if I was to book time off here in November, the system tells me how many days I'll have available now. It even tells me a rolling total of all the days off I've booked. But if I was to move forward and book that time off into the future, the system knows all my resets and my accrual rates and is able to update this balance based on the date of my time off request. And that real-time visibility is important because what it means is the system can tell you as much as it wants about what you have today, but users need to know what they're going to have in the future to make intelligent time off bookings that aren't rejected. Obviously, each one of these time off requests that is submitted can go through an approval process within the system. That approval process is facilitated with a workflow that allows supervisors to be notified via email, accessing the system and going directly to the Team tab to see all of their requests logged as such. They also have the ability to see a calendar view and make determinations about those conflicts that may or may not exist from that same calendar interface, even booking or approving those time off requests right from here. Now, this calendar and the user calendar both support integration to your local products, Outlook, Google Calendar, any web-based calendar can be integrated with our product with a feed link that is put into your calendar tool once, and then you have a maintained copy of this shared calendar local to you. You don't have to access the product at all. You'll be able to see when people are out of the office just by looking at your standard calendar. Okay. Now, this information is great within the system, but in a lot of cases we want to get this information out to process for payroll. A lot of salaried employees still have exception time tracked through payroll, and what we can do from the payroll tab is administratively override or modify any of the time off entries within the system with full audit capabilities. And we can also export, and I think for the purposes of today, we have ADP set up and configured within the system, and this will allow us to generate an export file with all of the exception time in it, and that file, once generated, is sent to ADP by clicking the export button. It produces a file, it flags the records, and once those records are flagged, there's the file right at the bottom that we can upload directly to ADP. Once those records are flagged, they're not available for export again, so you don't have to worry about double exporting any of your data, and you have full access to all that historical information. Now, reporting within the system is going to give you, payroll administrators or HR, access to everybody's data and information, all their details, all their requests, what they've taken in the past. And you can give that same report. The nice thing about Replicon is you can give that same report to an individual that does not have your permissions, and they can run that report and only see their data or only see their team's data. So it's all permission driven, and visibility is based on permissions. Here's an example of the time off liability report. And this is a great report from an accounting or finance perspective because it's going to show you at any point in time as of today, if I had to let Richard go, here's the amount that we would owe him from a cost of remaining time off perspective for each of his time off types. And that's a powerful tool because Replicon doesn't only have the time off balances and the accrual rates, etc., and policies. It also has all of the cost information for the employee as well. Again, restricted based on permissions who can see that, and that allows us to see the cost of remaining time off from a financial liability perspective at any point in time. So we've gone through the tool at a really high level at this point, and that's on purpose. What we want to do is be able to discuss some of the questions you might have about time off tracking, how Replicon can help. To do that, we're going to come back to the presentation and talk about some of the best practices that you can put into place in your organization, and we can come back to these at any point in time during the Q&A. But the first thing is almost it almost doesn't need to be said. An automated system needs to be put in place. I talk to organizations on a regular basis that are still doing their time off tracking either manually or not at all. Somebody comes and goes as they see fit. When they leave an organization, they still have a full balance of time off, vacation, when you know they've been out of the office for a period of time, and that's a liability that you have to pay out. And organizations that aren't tracking their time off in an automated fashion are paying that balance out over and over again when they do not need to. It's just because they're not tracking that they find this is the case. Even a manual system, a paper-based system, is going to have serious flaws. Organizing and collating all of those requests, making sure they aren't lost or having an audit trail of changes to them is going to be very difficult from a paper perspective. And not to mention the fact that it's going to take a considerable amount of resource time to maintain. Okay. Automated accruals and end-of-year resets. Accrual calculations probably contribute to a lot of errors when it comes to balance of employee vacation. And if these are not an automated accrual from a system, it means they have to be recalculated on a continuous basis. Every time there's a question from an employee, they may have to go in and recalculate them. And all of those calculations take away from your resources time. HR can be providing a lot more value to your organization, and payroll can be providing a lot more value to your organization in other aspects, as opposed to calculating accruals out for an employee. Allow a system that can do that automatically without any manual intervention. Okay. The third point is that you want an auditable mechanism. A lot of times, the accrual errors that we see are a result of an organization, erring on the side of the employee because they're scared of somebody coming back on them and saying, you owe this employee, vacation time, or you've treated this employee unfairly. An auditable mechanism to track time off, like the transaction list we saw in Replicon, is going to give you all the proof that you need. If an auditor comes to you and says, hey, why Scott's, come to labor board, he would like another 14 days of vacation. He feels he's entitled to it, and it is justified what he's received. You have a full record of all of their policy changes, all of their time off, with date timestamps, user electronic signatures associated with them, so you never have to worry about that again with a solution like Replicon Time Off. Real-time accrual and balance, and this shouldn't be confused with the automatic accrual, but real-time accrual and balance allows users to book off not only today, but in the future with an accurate representation of what their time off allowance will be. Often, employees aren't booking their vacations before the accrual has, with all of their time off accrued. What they're usually doing is booking into the future when they know they will accrue that time. And it's important for a system to communicate to them, if they're booking time off in December or around Christmas or Thanksgiving in November, that the balance that they have at that point in time will cover the time off they're booking. Okay. You don't want the employee to have to call HR to figure that out. You want them to see that so they can make the request, book it without taking HR payroll time away. Last item in this is probably the most important, is have that information centralized and have a collaborative interface so that it's an open venue for users to see what other users are taking off or when they're going to be out of the office. We don't need to communicate why they're out of the office. It's quite easy for them to walk by their office and see they're not in their desk. And so we're communicating organization-wide as far as you want their permissions to allow who's in, who's out, and that prevents shortages of resources, conflicts when it comes to time off, and makes for a fully staffed organization at the right times of the year. Centralizing all of that data as well in an organization means if you have a bunch of satellite offices, one location for all of that data means you can report out of one, run payroll out of one, and see visually in one place what all of your employees across the enterprise are working on at a given time. That wraps up the best practices that I wanted to discuss.
Thank you so much, Scott. And just to follow up on that, we'll certainly be back in touch with you on an individual basis if you did submit a question through the Q&A queue and we didn't get to it. Just in general, another reminder, if you have time attend right now, you have time off, and we would definitely encourage you to attend one of our implementation webinars that we'll be holding 3 times this month. You'll see the dates on the 11th, 18th, and 25th. So it's a time attend implementation webinar, but because time off is such an integral part of time attend, that module will be discussed in detail. So go to replicon.com/implementations-webinars. And for those of you who don't have time attend, you'd like to learn more about time off, go to replicon.com/time off. You can see a lot of our information up there. You can also contact your account managers or sales@replicon.com. So with that, thank you so much. We appreciate your attendance, and we look forward to having you on another webinar. We're signing off.